Hello, and welcome to this updated video guide for healing or DPSing Castrum Meridianum in Final Fantasy Heavensward. My name is TSDS, and in this video you'll learn everything there is to know about healing or DPSing the Castrum now that it's no longer current content. Castrum Meridianum is the first of two 8-man dungeon encounters in the level 50 story quest line of A Realm Reborn. When I first did this dungeon, I looked at a lot of guides to ensure that I didn't mess up, but all of them are now out of date. This guide will focus more on what you need to do rather than where you need to go. As a healer or DPS, you'll have no problems in simply following where the crowd is going. If you want a more in-depth guide of where to go, however, check out my tanking guide. At the start, your tanks will pull all of the mobs in this area and run them down to where the first boss is located. While this is going on, make sure that you, or someone in your group, interacts with both searchlight terminals located right in front of you. Generally, only higher geared tanks make this pull in one go, so healing it isn't usually too difficult, but just be ready to use a cooldown or something if needed. DPS players should wait until the tanks have finished grouping mobs before AoEing, but it largely doesn't matter. When the mobs are dead, you'll encounter your first boss, the Black Eft. This is an extremely easy fight, so there's nothing to really worry about. For healers, stack with the melee and you can probably just attack the boss. Adds will spawn, which will likely aggro to you, so being on the boss makes it easier for your tanks to grab them off you. For DPS players, forget the adds and just nuke the boss, and before you know it, it'll be down. When the boss is dead, another cutscene will interrupt you here, just like at the searchlights. For healers, I recommend skipping these as they can be viewed later and you may need to do some actual healing depending on who your other healer is. For DPS players, while you can watch these cutscenes, as the dungeon is so easy that no one cares if they're down one DPS, the sheer volume of cutscenes will mean that you'll miss the vast majority of what's going on. Just choose whether or not you want to see the cutscenes or the dungeon on your first time. The cutscenes can be found in your room at an inn and also on my channel. After running along this path a short distance, you'll come across another searchlight terminal that you should interact with to disable. Your tanks will be doing longer pulls here again, but the damage shouldn't be that high. Eventually, you'll get to this weird water pipe plant that you must sabotage. As you go down the central path, you'll notice an unstable panelling located on either side of you. There will be a ramp on either side, allowing you to get to them. Your tanks here would pull all the mobs, allowing you to run past and interact with the panellings, blowing them up. Once both sides are done, you'll run back and head towards the second boss. The second boss, Magitek Vanguard F1, is much like the first, only with more adds. The tactics are the exact same as the Black Eft, healers stack with melee, and DPS just focus on killing the boss. The adds are nothing but flies. After this boss, Cid will show up and the dungeon will become interesting. Not long after, Cid will blow down a door. Your tanks will rush in, grabbing all the mobs, while you run past and hop on some cannons to blow them up. The cannons will have one action, allowing you to select an area to shoot. They do huge damage and make quick work of any monster here. You can see here that the cannons can only fire somewhat straight in front of them, so your tanks should position the mobs correctly. Note, however, the cannons can be destroyed by mob area attacks, but this is something only tanks can control with their mob positioning. The cannons are more of a DPS toy because the tanks may need healing now and then, but you can still have fun most of the time. Once these mobs are dead, your tanks will run up this pathway, pulling everything as they go, and eventually you'll find, you guessed it, more cannons. Just hop on and blow the mobs away. Going through the purple boss wall, you'll encounter the third boss, Magitek Colossus Rubicatus. Well, at least you will as soon as Cid gets his arse over here. As Cid attacks this tower, 3 mobs will spawn, followed shortly by the boss. This boss is also relatively simple. For healers and random group tactics, there's not really any good place to stand, as the adds spawning in will come from all over the place. The adds are weak source though, so it doesn't matter. When the adds spawn, they are accompanied by several Magitek hand monsters that create very obvious purple links between themselves and the boss. During this time, the boss takes almost 0 damage and the hand monsters cannot be destroyed, so for DPS players, this is when you should break from the boss and kill the other adds. Our buddy Cid will take care of the hand monsters, and when all the links are broken, you can go back to the boss. The speed at which this boss goes down means that the adds will spawn very close together, but this fight is trivial at best. Past this door will be some more mobs. Your tanks will pull them further on, where you'll come across the first set of cannons again. Blow them up and keep going. This next bit is rather important for healers, but DPS should pay attention here too, as both of you should be doing this. The healers obviously just have one more job to do as you go along. After opening the doors using the keys you picked up, the tank will run up these ramps and pull the mobs there, so follow them up. At the top, you'll find a searchlight terminal, so interact with it and disable it. While you're doing this, the tank will be on their way up the second ramp further on, so catch up to them and disable the second searchlight. Once both are down, a cutscene will interrupt you and an airship will start attacking you. Cannons will spawn below at the same time that you can interact with to automatically shoot the airship. While this is going on, as a DPS, you can continue to use the newly spawned cannons to shoot the airship until a cutscene plays, unlocking the final boss. Using these cannons will spawn 2 Colossi, which the tank should pick up and pull all the way back to the other cannons in the previous area where players should be ready to fire. For healers, this can be quite intensive and tricky. The tanks can take a lot of damage here, but you also need to be careful not to heal too much, lest you take the attention of all the monsters. All in all, it's not too hard, but take this as a fair warning that it might get a little tight. The final boss is Livius Genius, and she is a 2-phase encounter. In the first phase, she starts out on her Magitek mount and can't be traditionally tanked. The way this phase works is that you must interact with the piles of Magitek missiles, one on either side of the room, to cause a Magitek hand to start loading nearby cannons. When the cannon is ready to fire, it will glow red. Interacting with the cannon gives you one action on your bar, allowing you to select where to shoot. Obviously, this is going to be the boss. The boss in this phase will attack the last person who shot her with a cannon, but this isn't something to be scared of because she does basically no damage. If she's attacking you, bring her to the middle of the room where she spawns so that she doesn't damage the cannons or the Magitek hands. Using the cannons will spawn adds that will usually run straight for the cannons, the Magitek hands or the healers. DPS in this phase should focus on killing the adds. The Magitek hands, along with the cannons, can be destroyed, and while the hands respawn after a short time, the cannons do not, so this is why it's important to position the boss correctly and deal with the adds quickly. Once she's been hit enough times, you'll be teleported back to the entrance of the encounter, ready for Phase 2 to begin. Phase 2 is a very simple tank and spank with adds. For healers, I advise you stack in melee, yet again, because a lot of adds will be spawning and it makes grouping them much easier. For DPS, nuke the boss. You can help AoE the adds as they pile up, but they really don't amount to much damage, so it's not really important. Keep going, and before long, she'll be down. Good job. If you enjoyed the guide, then let me know, and if there are any other encounters or perspectives you would like to see, check out my channel or feel free to ask me to create one. The cutscenes for this dungeon can be found in your room at an inn, but you can also find them on my channel. For healers, I do recommend that you skip them in the dungeon and watch them later, but as a DPS, you can really do what you want. Just remember that choice of what you want to see I mentioned earlier. Thank you for watching, and good luck.